Good evening. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Anne-Marie Battistone with Norfolk Community Cable. We're here at the middle school for the Candidates Night, sponsored by the Norfolk Community League. So let's listen.
The candidates will each have an opportunity to introduce themselves, their position on the ballot, and any relevant issues. Those who are unopposed will have 3 minutes, and we have only one candidate here tonight who is running opposed, and he will have 5 minutes. And I'm going to turn it over to Cece Van Tine.
Good evening. My name is Cece Van Tine. I will be moderating this evening's event. And I'm reading from the candidates' evening script, and it's telling me that I'm going to invite each of the candidates to the podium excuse me, to introduce themselves, their positions on the ballot, and relevant issues pertaining to their position. There is going to be somebody keeping time, and I'm actually the first candidate on the list, so I'll just stay up here for a minute. Pardon?
You're on.
I'm on. I'm being timed. And everyone knows I like people to stay with their time. So my position is a one-year term. I'm up for re-election every single year. It means every single year I collect signatures from family, friends, and neighbors. I've been moderator now for several years. I live on Cleveland Street. I have 4 children, 3 of whom are in HOD, and 1 of whom is at Bishop Fian. I'm an attorney at the law offices of Myrick O'Connell, and I love being moderator. That's me. So see, I kept it under 3 minutes. Next on the hit parade is the selectman, James C. Lehan, who is running unopposed, and we'd love to hear from Mr. Lehan.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I'd like to thank NCL for supporting this, as you have for many, many, many years. We appreciate all the work that you do. I'd also like to thank the folks that are up here tonight, because they're volunteering their time and talent, and those are gifts that Norfolk desperately needs and appreciates, and this town really runs on the backs of its volunteers, so I'm grateful for their participation as well. My name is Jim Lehan. I've lived in Norfolk almost 30 years with my family. I have 4 children, all of whom attended our schools. I now have 8 grandchildren who are also all attending, well, 6 are attending our schools as well. 2 of my daughters have returned. I am running for selectman, and appreciate very much the support that your support in this upcoming election. There's no way I can cover any meaningful issues in the 2 minutes that I have remaining, but I do want to share just a thought, because I think everybody up here and everyone that volunteers in town does so because they really they care deeply for the community and they want to give back to the community, and that's, I think all of us share that belief. I just want to tell you that in participating in this process, the community gives a lot back to us as well. Norfolk has been a wonderful, wonderful place for me and my family. I'm thrilled that 2 of my daughters have chosen to move back here and raise their families here, which I think speaks to this community in just leaps and bounds. It has been a privilege to serve as your selectman. I have met such wonderful people that work for our town, and I just want to share a little bit on that. Almost every department we have in town has fewer people staffing it today than it did 5 years ago. You all know what we've gone through in the last 5 years. But these are hardworking, dedicated people. And one of the great benefits of having served as your selectman is to get not only to know them, but to see the work that they do and how much they care. And everybody, yes, has a bad day. But they have so many more good days than they do bad days. And they really care about the efforts that they give in trying to make this the wonderful town that we all enjoy. And I hate to single any one particular group out, but 2 of our officers, Nate Fletcher and Glenn Eichel, are part of what we call a Metro team, and we're in Boston during this horrible, tragic event and served in that capacity. And we owe them a great debt of gratitude, as we do all of those who serve in public safety. These folks are just ordinary people like you and I, but they do just extraordinary things. So if you should get stopped on Union Street by one of Norfolk's finest on the way home tonight for speeding, like most of us have at one time or another, before you get angry at them, thank him, because these folks really stand out every single day trying to help these citizens, and they protect and serve. And I'm very grateful to have gotten to know them, grateful to have gotten to know all the citizens, or as many as I've been able to get to know in this community, and all of the other volunteers that serve and help to make this the great town that it is. So thank you very much.
Mr. Lehan's tag.
I've lost it 3 times. Thank you.
We all know who you are.
Thank
So.
you.
don't think you need to put it back on. Next, I'm not sure what, perhaps this is the order that they're on the ballot. The next on the list is a Kathleen Milano for Board of Assessors. It's 1 3-year term. She's the candidate for re-election. She is unopposed and she is unable to attend. Next is the Board of Health. Jeffrey Kane is a candidate for re-election. It's a 1 3-year term. He too is unable to attend and is unopposed. The next is Constable. And this is a 1 3-year term. It is the only contested election that we have this year for local. I understand there may be some other race going on that's not nearly as interesting at the same time. But with respect to our contested election, that is for Constable. It is for a 1 3-year term. There are 2 gentlemen vying for the position. The first, who is able to attend, is Daniel L. Fallon, and I'd invite him to the microphone.
Thank you very much, moderator. My name is Dan Fallon, and I'm running for constable. I have over 35 years' experience as a former deputy sheriff and a constable in the town of Foxborough. So I got into the race after seeing there was an opening and talking to Paul, and found that there was an opening, and I ran for the office. I feel there's a lot of liability for this if it's not served well, because you got to be bonded, and you got to be sure that papers and any kind of activity you do for the town, that there is no liability on the town. So I decided that I would get into the race, and that's why I'm running. Any questions?
We'll have a question section later, so you still have like 3.5 minutes
Okay.
to tell us about yourself.
Okay, it's all about time. Okay, fine.
No pressure though, no pressure.
No. I lived in the town for 8 years, originally from Foxborough, and I moved into town, and I just love the town. I love it dearly, and there's nothing better than going up and watching the concerts, and a nice hot night and stuff like that. And so I just love the town dearly, and basically I've never thought that I'd ever be running for the office, but there was an opening, as I said from the beginning, and I gave it my shot, and we're working very hard at it. We've got about 6 days left now, well actually 7 days left, and at that, hopefully it'll be very quickly, because we missed a week of what happened in the town, in the city of Boston, which was something that was such a tragedy, and all our hearts go out to that, and that's when we decided that we would just hold our campaign, and now we're back on track to have respect for the people of Boston and the people injured and so forth. Basically, that's all I have to say.
Well, all right.
Thank you.
Very nice job. Thank you very much, Mr. Fallon. The other gentleman running for this seat, Mr. Flaherty, is unable to attend. Next is Housing Authority, which is a 1 3-year term. It is an unopposed election. Mr. Robert J. Shannon is a candidate for re-election.
Thank you. I'd like to start by thanking the members of the Norfolk Community League and all the members of the audience and my fellow candidates. My name is Robert Shannon. Many of you may know me by my day job. I'm a police officer in the town of Norfolk. I've been employed by the town for almost 30 years. Currently, I am a member of the Norfolk Housing Authority, where I have served for the past 10 years in the capacity of member, chairman, and currently I'm serving as vice chairman. I got started with the Norfolk Housing Authority and a tumultuous time for the Housing Authority. The police were being called to the housing quite frequently, and there was a lot of missed communications between the Housing Authority and the police. And I took it upon myself to meet with the executive director of the Housing Authority, whereupon she appointed me as her police liaison. And wanting to help facilitate a relationship between the police and the Housing Authority greater, I sought a position with the Housing Authority. I was appointed by Governor Romney back in 2003 as the state rep of the Norfolk Housing Authority, and this is my second time running for re-election. I would appreciate your vote on next Tuesday, and I thank you again for coming out this evening.
Thank you very much. I will be sure to wave at you next time I see you on Cleveland Street, parked on the side of the road, driving 25 miles an hour, because I always do. Next is for library trustee. It's a 1 3-year term. Kenneth W. Nelson is a candidate for re-election. He is unopposed and also unable to attend. Following the library trustee with impeccable timing is the candidate unopposed for Norfolk School Committee, Sean C. Dooley, for 1 3-year term. He is a candidate for re-election. Mr. Dooley.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Hi, my name is Sean Dooley. I'm running again for school committee. Don't necessarily have a speech planned. I just wanted to kind of go over some of the things that we've accomplished over the past 3 years. We've negotiated a union contract that we were very, very proud of. Worked with the teachers to get a wage freeze for the teachers to help us manage our budget, and we did a 0%, 1%, and 2% over the 3 years respectively. We've hired a new superintendent. We are in the process of completely revamping all the school security systems, and especially in the wake of the Newtown tragedy. We've brought in new math curriculums, and we're bringing in a new language arts curriculum. We're going to follow that up with a science curriculum. So we've been completely expanding those roles. When I first got elected, one of the first things I did was met with the principals and look at the curriculum. And it hadn't been updated in 15 to 20 years. And so that became a predominant goal of mine. In order to help that, we brought in 2 new assistant vice principals. Each spend half their time as an assistant principal and the other half of their time as the curriculum coordinator for the H. Olive Day and for the Freeman Kennedy School. And so that's it. So if, are we doing questions now? Are we doing questions later?
If you
All right.
did
Well,
earlier, you
lots of meetings. So I will be looking forward to answering anybody's questions after. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dooley. Next, we have 2 3-year terms available for planning board and 2 candidates for those terms, so it is an uncontested race. The first gentleman on the list is Mr. Palumbo. However, he is unable to attend. I know that he sent a statement to be read, but I'd rather have the person who actually showed up speak first. So I know, your moment of glory is just going to have to be tabled for a moment. So I would like to invite, please, Mr. Walter Byron to the stage. Or to the microphone, already on the stage.
Well, good evening. My name is Walter Byron. I live at 80 Fruit Street. My wife and I have been in residence there for over 44 years. Our kids went to the Norfolk school system. My educational background is an engineering degree from Tufts and another engineering degree from Northeastern. After school, I joined the Navy and spent a couple of years as an officer on a destroyer out in the Pacific. After the service, I came back and started work and was fortunate enough to have a 33-year career with Polaroid Corporation in camera manufacturing and camera product development. Back in the 70s, when our former moderator, Frank Gross, was chair of the local school committee, I served on that board for a couple of years. In 2005, 6, and 7, I worked on the master plan committee where that group updated the town's master plan document. And in 2008, I joined the Economic Development Committee, which works with the Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board to provide information to assist them in encouraging business and commercial development in the town. Most recently, I've been on the Zoning Bylaw Study Committee, and you'll see the fruits of that work at the town meeting on the 7th. I'm running for a seat on the planning board because I want to encourage business and commercial development within the town's districts that allow that. For the past several years, 94% of the tax revenue that we've collected in town has come from residences. I'd like to see that number drop to 93 and 92 and 91, et cetera, et cetera. And to do that, I'd like to work with other members of the planning board to review and modify and expeditiously approve projects that make sense for the town. Now, I respect the town's desire to maintain its rural character and also respect the desire to keep the aesthetic values that are embedded within the zoning bylaws. But I think it's important to encourage future business and commercial development to increase the tax revenue and take the burden a little bit off the residents of the town who undoubtedly are going to see future tax increases. So I ask for your vote on Tuesday, April 30th. Thank you very much.
So I'm going to read the statement for Jeff Palumbo. He did ask to submit a video or a Skype type presentation, but I made the executive decision that this was going to remain a grassroots community type event with kind of tech free. So we did tell him he could submit the statement. Thank you to the Norfolk Community League for hosting the candidates again this year. This is the first time I've been unable to appear in person at this event, but appreciate the opportunity to submit a statement in my absence. I began my public service in 2007 as a member of the Board of Health. In 2010, I joined the Planning Board and have served as chairman for the past 2 years. During this period, the board has reviewed a wide range of projects from residential subdivisions to commercial site plans. The board has sought to promote development within the town while preserving those features which attracted many of us to the community, namely the convenience of a Boston suburb, but the beauty and serenity of a much simpler time. During the past year, in particular, the Planning Board has approved some significant projects for development in the C1 Business District, the area surrounding the intersection of Route 1A and Route 115. These projects include a car wash, a filling station, and a 3-story medical office building, which will include primary care, urgent care, and specialty medical services. A multi-story office building, also in the C1 Business District, is currently in the planning stages. These projects were thoroughly reviewed by the Planning Board and the Design Review Board and facilitated through the efforts of the town's Economic Development Committee. As a member of the Economic Development Committee, I appreciate the efforts of Walter Byron and look forward to serving with him on the Planning Board. The Planning Board also faced some challenges over the past 2 years, the most significant being the proposed resort casino in Foxborough. The board was unified in its opposition to the casino as it was viewed as a direct threat to the quality of life of the residents of Norfolk. In short, the Board of Selectmen and Planning Board were among the many participants who succeeded in defeating this ill-conceived proposal. I have always believed that communication and teamwork are key ingredients to successful organizations. Whether it be an oil refinery, a chemical research laboratory, a soccer team, or a municipality. But I also believe that the best decisions are made when informed people with diverse backgrounds and experience are given the opportunity to freely share their ideas and opinions. I have had the benefit of such counsel and have tried not to compromise by vetting process for purposes of expedience. As a result, I believe the residents of Norfolk have been faithfully served. In closing, I appreciate the support you have given me and many volunteers and elected officials who serve the town of Norfolk. I respectfully ask for your vote on April 30th. Sincerely, Jeff Palumbo, Chairman, Norfolk Planning Board. That's the conclusion of his statement. Before I turn it back over to Cece, there was a question about if you had questions for folks that are not here. If you do wish to do that, you can write your question on a card and write your email or a way to contact you going forward, and we can reach out to the candidates and see if we can get an answer and to get the response back to you.
So I guess the next step on the hit parade is folks to wave their cards in the air if they have any questions, and those cards will be collected.
So this question is for the moderator. If the average citizen is displeased with an elected official, it is their duty and right to vote them out of office. You, as the appointing authority of the advisory board, what disciplinary oversight do you use if there are issues with an appointee?
It's a great question. Fortunately, I haven't had to do that yet. My understanding is that I have the authority to remove people from the board, but more, I think what I would do is remove them by attrition. Every year, they're on a rolling schedule of appointments, so each year there's 2 or 3 who are up for reappointment. And if I determine that by virtue of my own witnessing of what they've been doing, or other people coming and pointing out that they're not attending, I think the thing that would be most bothersome would be failure to attend advisory meetings, not weighing in, not doing the extra effort that people are expected to do for advisory, which in my mind would be the only thing that I would want to remove someone for if somebody's willing to donate their time. But if I observed that somebody was not devoting their full attention to the advisory board, I would not reappoint them. Now me. Now I'm going to ask the question. So the next questions are for Mr. Fallon. And I'm going to do 3 in a row. So I don't know if you want to come stand next to me, or this was what we had sort of I'll ask the first one, then I'll step back, then I'll ask the next one, I'll step back. This is a great one too. For Dan Fallon, and I know you're going to know the answer to this one. So what does a constable do?
Constable serves process papers from the court or from the people in general. Like they go to court and someone owes them a lot of money, and all of a sudden they get a KPS or a summons. And then first comes is the summons. I would deliver the summons, serve it, and then if they don't show up for court, then the judge automatically puts it into a KPS, and then what I would do is I would go out and I would automatically arrest that person, bring him to the court, and then you go before a judge, and then the judge would tell you, what you have to hear, and that would be, they got to pay.
Thank you very much. The next question actually starts, what exactly does a constable do? So fortunately, you've already answered that one. And we actually just pulled out another one that asks what the duties of a constable are, because you've answered that one. However, this was a multi-part question. This one states, what exactly does a constable do? How much time is typically required every week or every month in your role as constable? And are you privately employed?
Number one, I'm privately employed. In a lot of towns, like I'm a constable in Foxborough, you get an appointment, but there, what you got to do is you make out an application and give you a resume, then you go before the chief of police. He screens you to check if you've got a criminal background and so forth, and then what you do is then you would go before the selectman, and then the selectman would say yes or no, can you be appointed to that job? And you would have to have the experience. In my situation, I've been a former deputy sheriff out of Middlesex County, and I'm also over with 35 years.
Don't go away. If one had no experience as a constable but wanted to become a constable, how would one learn what is needed to be a constable?
First of all, in my last debate with the other opponent, I suggested there was 4 ways of doing it. One, you'd go to either Dean College and get a seminar, go to a seminar there, which they will teach you how to be a constable. 2, you get hired as a deputy sheriff. And 3, you would work with another constable and learn the routines and how to do the process and everything else. And the reason that is because it's liability. You're insured for $5,000. Every constable has to get a bond. And every year, for 3 years, which every appointment is 3 years, you have to pay $100 every 3 years. Every year, I should say, for 3 years. And the other one that I suggest very much is you go to the court. You go to the courthouse on a Thursday, you sit there, and actually a lot of people should do this to learn the basics of a constable. Because people get anxieties when they go before a court and they owe a bill that's $3,500 or $4,000. And what happens really is you don't have to do that, because 90% of the time it can be worked out.
Next question for Mr. Fallon. Please compare your qualifications to that of your opponent.
I think I already did that, but we'll do it again anyways. Mark Flaherty, he's new, very nice gentleman. I like him very much. But he doesn't have the experience for this. This job, as I said from the beginning, has where a liability is. If you serve a paper wrong, you're in trouble. I will give you one scenario that happened in 2007. I was brought to the Rentham District Court on a case where a gentleman, another constable, turned around and was out of another area. He was out of Brockton. And what he did is he came into Foxborough and he served service, which he didn't have a right to do. Each town has constables, but you only can serve within that town. But if you want to go beyond that, you have to go what it's called a C4. You got to go down to the Rentham District Court, and you got to get it approved by the clerk of the courts, and then you can proceed to do a KPS or an eviction or anything like that.
Last question. Mr. Fallon, quote, "It's disappointing your competitor was unable to show this evening. However, what resources will you use to remain up to date and current in all matters relating to constable work, even with your 30-plus years of experience?"
We're going to still go forward. We're still going to go forward to run our campaign and everything else. And we're not going to let that deter us because he didn't show up for a debate. I know him, so we've already had one debate. So I'm just going to keep going, and we're up and running, and we're going to campaign, and I'm going to ask you for my vote on April 30th. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Dooley, 2 questions. First one's a little confusing, I apologize. It says, for Mr. Dooley, do you agree with the sentiment currently posted on Norfolk Net? And then they've produced the sentiment, which I shall read. April 14th at 6:18 p.m., BB. The reason no one has any common sense anymore is because the public schools are too busy teaching left-wing blather. All public school teachers are members of a union. All unions have an agenda. That's why they are formed in the first place. Kids are not getting an education about factual history, geography, economics, or just plain common sense anymore. It's all about the liberal agenda and how to further that agenda. So I guess the question is, having heard this rather centrist statement, do you agree with it?
No. The very, very simple answer is no. Those of you who know me, I'm a pretty staunch conservative. I have no problem pointing out liberal bias where I see it. The Norfolk Public Schools does not have any of this. We work very, very hard. The teachers work incredibly hard to teach our children. I know there has been things out there where people don't like the Common Core. There's some people out there that have some conspiracy theories on some of these issues. We are in the process of revamping all of our curriculum to correspond with the Common Core, but the reason we're doing it isn't to correspond with the Common Core, is to make sure our children get the very, very best education that is possible for us to have, with the resources that we have. The teachers work very hard. The union and the school committee, we have actually a very, very good relationship. We work together. We try to make sure we're all on the same page, and including the administration. So I don't believe that actually has a place in the Norfolk Public Schools.
Thank you very much. One more question. For Mr. Dooley, is it important to teach critical thinking skills to our students? And if so, how should we teach those critical thinking skills?
Yes, it's important. Unfortunately, you've gone well beyond my scope as a member of the school committee. We work with the professionals, the superintendent, the faculty, the groups that are developing these curriculums to help fund them, help make sure they have their resources. We do not do day-to-day work with the schools, making sure that, critical thinking takes place. That being said, since we just had the presentation last month from the math curriculum, one of the primary focuses of the math curriculum and coming forward the new English language arts curriculum is critical thinking, to help children be able to think outside of the box. One of the areas that we have, in Norfolk, have fallen down on the job is, if you look at our MCAS scores through the past 5 years, the area that we're most lacking is the areas that where it's critical thinking, where they're doing discussions and when they're doing their essay work, and as opposed to just answering a B, C, D, or E question. So that's one of the areas that we have developed and highlighted as our primary goal to focus on over the next 3 years, to make sure that the curriculum adjusts and takes that into account. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Is that it?
That's it. Mr. Lehan, I have 2 questions for you. The first question, I'm going to do them in reverse order because I think one's kind of a shorter question in terms of answering than the other. The first question states that citizens can listen and speak at meetings of town boards and committees and at the town meeting. What are your thoughts on more actively engaging citizens in government decision-making?
I am a strong supporter of trying to get people, or trying to help people become informed in the governmental process. There are a number of things we do, but I would be the first to say that we're not as successful as I would like us to be. Part of it is that we know that everybody's life is very busy. We have difficulty filling boards. We constantly have vacancies on all of the boards. To this day, all of our boards are not completely filled. I wish we had more volunteers. I wish we had more people involved, because it really is the core group that makes the town run. I know I was given advance notice of this question, so I had the opportunity, I was sent some links to take a look at some of the ways that other communities, large communities like San Jose, have utilized different processes to engage the community. And I would be very, very open to that. I'm open to anything that engages the voter in having a better understanding of the issues that are before you. The governmental process is a very, very good process, but the Board of Selectmen don't make any decisions. You, the voters, make all the decisions. We advise. We come to town meeting and we advise. You decide. You appropriate every single dollar that's spent in this town. So anything that we can do to engage people, and we're doing monthly cable shows now, trying, and for those of you that have only basic cable and no other channels to get, hopefully you'll watch. But I am amazed how many people do watch these shows. I can't even get my wife to watch them. But I'm certainly open to any ideas. There is no door that I'm not willing to open to help people become more informed and more involved in town government.
Thank you very much. Before the next question, I think that a nice segue, because we forgot to mention, after listing all of the other openings for government election, Recreation Commission has 2 3-year terms available and no nominated candidates. That means nobody pulled papers or got signatures. What it means, though, is that if any of you all who are interested enough to come here tonight, either yourselves or someone else, can do a write-in campaign, and we'll certainly happily tell you how to do that so that you can become a member of the Recreation Commission. Next question. How, and now I know the handwriting for future reference, I'm going to save this one in a book. How can Norfolk solve its budget problems? As I told you, there was one that was longer.
You could give us a large charitable contribution. When I first came on the board, which is a while ago, we were in reasonably good times in Norfolk. We had pretty good surplus of free cash, and we were able to look at some opportunities where we could really invest in our community. Then, like all of you, we as a community experienced one of the most significant financial crises we've ever faced. And we hit what some have described as devastating times. To this day, we are still getting $1 million less from the state than we got 5 years ago, to this day. And every year in between 2006 and today, we have gotten less than we did in 2006. We've had our Prison mitigation money pulled out from under us 3 of the last 5 years. They have been very difficult times. But I will tell you that the community has managed its way through this very, very well, as best we can. We don't have enough money for roads. We don't have enough money to do all the things we'd like to do, but we are financially solvent. We've come through this pretty well. We just recently made a deposit to our stabilization fund, which is the first deposit the town has made in over 12 years. And we never made a withdrawal during this financial problem. So, and we had our bond rating increased, one of only 5 towns in the state of Massachusetts to have that occur. So you should all be very proud of your employees who are really the drivers of this and having made the significant changes and cuts and worked their way through this that they've done. But longer term, we have only really 2 or 3 variables. We are limited by state aid, and we are limited by Prop 2.5. Proposition 2.5, which is, as was aptly pointed out by Walter, we represent about 94% private real estate tax, 6% commercial. We are not able to do a split rate like Rentham does because they have substantially more commercial, obviously the malls. New growth, appropriate new growth, is really the only major source of revenue we have, unless everyone goes out and buys a new Mercedes and gets a substantially more excise tax. Our really only opportunity is new growth. So we've been working hard on that, thanks to a number of different committees that Walter referenced earlier. We've tried to build a longer-term strategy that we can implement with some degree of success. We will never implement that strategy to its fullest extent. But if you don't have a roadmap, you can make a lot of mistakes when you take the wrong turns. So we needed to get that roadmap in place, and we have that in place. And I know that there are contradictory views on this, that, you know, some people would like no development, no one wants anything built next door to them. I mean, I understand all that. But the reality is that new growth is our only real variable. We cannot depend on the state. Hopefully it'll get better, but we cannot depend on them. So our only real source is to find those opportunities, and we are trying very hard, especially down around the Route 1A that Walter referenced several or actually it was Jeff Palumbo in his note, referenced several projects that are underway. Those will provide substantial revenue. That medical building alone will generate $150,000 of new revenue each year to the town of Norfolk. So there are opportunities, and if we work collectively together, create the right environment for them to develop, but also do so in a way that we ensure that we protect those considerations that are very important and vital to the character that we love in this town. That's really the only major variable we have, other than to watch our expenses and manage our resources as carefully as we can.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming. This concludes the formal presentation. I'd invite you all to come into the cafeteria after this for refreshments. I know that's why everybody really comes. I'd like to thank the Norfolk Community Television, KP Middle School, and the candidates who made the time to come tonight and speak. Thank you very much.